Beginner's Guide to Maps. My name is Patrick McKay. I'm a senior manager on the Maps team, and I've been at Tableau for 3 years, and this is my 4th TC conference. My first TC conference, I was at the company for about 2 weeks, and so it was quite the introduction to the company. But you're in luck. I had this deck vetted by an expert. She looked at the content, she looked at my scenarios, she helped me practice my jokes, and she helped do some speaker coaching. And that person is my daughter. Yeah, I need those oohs and ahs, right? This is my daughter, Lauren. This is her getting ready for a dance recital a couple months ago. And she did actually help me. I was practicing this deck in my den one night, and she kind of strolled in and sat down and listened to me go through my deck. And she gave me various signals, like she rolled her eyes with some of my jokes, and she gave me thumbs up and thumbs down as I progressed through the deck. Here's our agenda for today. The first demo is on the Superstore, and what this will help you learn is a very easy way to get started in Tableau. It's just a few clicks to be able to create a map. The second demo is the elections. I chose the Canadian election instead of the US election. And this will show you how to bring in custom geography into Tableau to allow you to do some analysis on it. The third demo is a data set I found in New Orleans, and it's about abandoned cars, and it will show you how to take latitude and longitude fields that you might have in your data set and plot it directly in Tableau. And the fourth is the zoo. I had to add this demo to please my daughter, and hopefully you guys will like it too. So the Superstore. The Superstore is a data source that's built right into Tableau. It's really easy to connect to, and it allows you to get going right away. So let me show you one of the first maps I ever created here at Tableau. I have some Starbucks cards to help grease the wheels. They're $5 Starbucks cards. And my first question is, what do you guys think of this map? Okay, yeah, I like this answer the best here. The woman in the blue. She went, eh. Yeah, it's pretty bad, right? You can tell it's bad because I actually labeled it. I actually labeled it as bad as well. That was another clue for you. Yeah, it's not that great. I'm trying to show profit per state for the Superstore set. And it's not very effective. It's really hard to see the numbers, right? It can take a long time to find it. I've got another quiz for you guys, another $5 Starbucks card on the line. Can anyone see where the missing data is? Oh, wow, that was fast. Was that you? Okay, yeah, it's Illinois. Yeah, you guys are quick. Yeah, Illinois is missing, but you can imagine if it was on the eastern coast here, how hard it would be to tell if the data is missing. So I revamped this map and created a better map. So this is showing the same data. It's profit per state. And you can see California jumps right out at you. Texas jumps at you. And your eyes just pick up on these colors much more quickly than those text labels. So I'm going to show you how to build both maps. So on the left side here is the fields in the data source. And in this area here, you can see country, state, city, and there's a little globe next to it. And that globe is telling you that Tableau knows these are place names, and it knows what to do if you use these place names. So I'm going to double-click state, and right away you get this point map, just one click. You'll notice up here on rows and columns, it puts these longitude and latitude fields. These are just generated by Tableau. This doesn't have to be in your data set, or this isn't required in your data set. And then down here on the marks card, you can see the country and state breakdown. So I'm going to add the profit to the label. So just 2 clicks to a really bad map. So it's really easy to make this the better map. And the color map is called a chloropleth map. All I have to do is move some over to color. And you can see the colors shine out. You can see the states. There is one other thing we want to do here. We know Illinois is missing. You have a couple clues that Illinois is missing. First, it doesn't have any shade on it. And second, there's this little UI widget down in this corner here that says one unknown. And if the tooltip comes up, it'll give you a bit more information. It's just saying that it's looked through the data set and it doesn't understand a location. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this widget, and a dialog comes up. I'm going to hit this Edit Locations. And here the Edit Locations dialog is saying it doesn't recognize a field value. And it's because I deliberately spelled Illinois incorrectly here. It turns out Illinois is spelled with 2 L's. So I'm going to quickly fix that in Tableau, and then you can see Illinois come in. I'm going to take this a step further. Another popular feature people use are dual axis maps. And this is a way that you can add more information to your map. I'm going to drag this latitude field. I'm holding Command on the Mac. It's Control on the PC. And you can see now there are 2 maps side by side. And on the marks card, there's an all marks card, and it's indicating that both maps have all these 3 fields. But I just want to manipulate one of the map. So I'm going to hit the bottom one here. I'm going to drop profit off of the map, and I'm going to put sales. I'm going to put it on size, and let me just size that a bit bigger. So now I've got a map at the bottom that's showing the proportional sales across the states. So the bigger the point, the bigger the circle, the more sales that state has. And I'm going to do another thing. I'm going to put a pie chart here. And I've been warned not to use pie charts. They kind of get a bad rap, but I thought to myself, I'm just going to do it to show you guys that you can do it. So I'm going to hit on this, I'm going to hit this mark type here. I'm going to select pie, and I'm going to grab this segment field and put it on color. If you notice on the right here, we've got our legend. So the segment's been colored with consumer, corporate, and home office. So now I'm going to put these 2 maps together. I'm going to click on this field here and go dual axis. And now everything's overlaid on top of each other. So this probably isn't a best practice. Someone's probably rolling in their grave as I was doing this. So the key takeaway here is you've got a lot of options. You can add a lot of data to your map, but be a little careful you're not overloading the map with too much information. You can see here sales here is really small. In Montana, it kind of loses meaning there, but it's an option you have for your data. So to summarize, use that Superstore sample. It's built right into the product. It can get you up and running right away. I use colors and size to help show those values for sales and profit. I use dual axis to combine the 2 maps together. And then look for those missing values. You can fix it right in Tableau. You might not have permissions to the data source. The data might be entered incorrectly, and you can fix that right in Tableau. And finally, kind of a word of warning. Be careful of population maps. What this map is probably actually showing you is the population of these states, not the profit, because California has a lot of people. You're probably going to make more money there, right? So one way you can correct for this is you can normalize the data. You would divide it by the population, get a per capita profit. And you might find that Washington State or Oregon actually has a higher profit margin, and maybe that's where you should open your next store. So another Starbucks card on the line. Can anyone tell me what country these buildings are in? Canada. I gotta make these questions harder, maybe. Let's pick someone on the right side here. Yeah. Yeah, if you haven't detected from my accent already, I'm Canadian. Is there any Canadians here? Oh, okay. Oh, you could recognize my accent. Okay. There's a Canadian here? Okay. Maybe I should give her a Starbucks card, too. There's only one Canadian here. Yeah, so I want to show you some other ways you can bring geographic information in. Tableau has something called a spatial file connector, and it lets you bring in custom geographies that are encoded into a file into Tableau. In this case, I went to the Government of Canada site, and I was looking at the 2015 elections. Those were federal elections. Those were the last federal elections. And they had some data there showing me the electoral districts. They're like congressional districts. They're also called ridings. They also had voting data for those ridings. So I'm going to bring this data together and show you what happened in the Canadian election. So first I'm going to go to this data source here and import that data. So I'm going to hit this add UI. And I'm going to hit spatial file right here. And I'm just going to traverse to a spatial file I've already downloaded. And this spatial file is called a shape file. This is the most popular format that's out there. If you start looking for data, you're likely to see it in a shape file. Shape files are a little bit weird. Well, first they end in .shp. That's not very weird. But they require several other files in conjunction with that file, and they have to be in the same directory. There's 4 files total that are required. If you don't have those 4 files, things won't work so well. So you have to make sure if you get a zip file, you have to unpackage it and make sure all those files are in the same directory. I'm going to hit open, and Tableau is going to process this file and show us some information about the spatial file. You can see we've got the columns up here. Fednum is just a unique ID for that riding or that district. You can see there's an English name here. There's the population that riding encapsulates. I'm not sure what this URL link is. And finally, there's this geometry, and that's the actual outline, the boundary of the riding. I also went to the Canadian government site and downloaded the voting data. So I'm going to combine the voting data with the shape file so we can look at the results of the election in a spatial way. So I'm going to hit add. And let me just traverse over to the poll data. So I'll bring the poll data in, and Tableau is saying, you know, it doesn't know how to combine these two. So I'm just going to set up a basic inner join. I'm going to use that fednum, which was that unique identifier, and I'm going to combine it with this electoral district number. And now those two have been joined. So what I have is, for every poll, there were votes taken, and I'm joining that with the geometry that represents the riding. So let's plot it. So on the left side here, you can see my data. Here's the data coming from the shapefile. Here's some of the voting. And here's some of the measures. Now I'm going to double click on geometry. Geometry represents those riding boundaries. And you can tell it's got that little globe on it. So when I click on it, a map is going to be created for me. So there's the ridings, all the ridings in Canada. You can see there's some pretty big ones in the north. There's basically 4 people that live up there, so they're very, very big. The ones down here are very small. There's a lot of dense population in this southern area of Ontario in Canada. But I want to break this shape up. By default, Tableau aggregates everything. And you need to break up the aggregation. When I select over it, it's aggregating this as one shape. I want to break it apart into the individual ridings. So I've got that fednum here, but it's kind of in the wrong place. When Tableau sees a number, it assumes it's a measure. It thinks it's something you can sum or average. And an ID isn't like that, right? A social security number, you would never sum or average those, or an employee ID, you would never sum or average those, right? So I'm just going to move this up here to disable that functionality and have it represented the way it really is. And then I'm going to move fednum into detail. And now you can see, as I select over, it's just the individual components. So my next goal is to figure out, which party won each riding. So luckily, I have this political affiliation name, which represents, or which has the name of the party in it. I'm going to move that to color. Tableau is giving me a little warning here, saying, hey, there's a lot of data in here. Are you sure you want to do it? In some data sets, you might want to filter the data sets down for performance reasons. Here, we're going to be OK. And now we've got all the parties that collected a vote in every riding. And so the colors are kind of combining together. But we're really only interested in the party that won. And there's a field here that indicates that. So I'm going to move this field over to filters. I'm going to select yes. And now we just have the parties that won. Now the colors are off here. So I'm going to just fix the colors to be consistent with the party. I'm going to use a Tableau 20. The block is light blue. Green is green, no surprise. All right, so now we've got a good picture of what happened in the election, who won what. You can see certain trends that you might be expecting. The Conservative Party in Canada is blue, and the Liberal Party in Canada is red. So, you Americans got your colors a little bit off. I don't know why, but Canada's kind of opposite. So you can see the blue area, the Conservative, it makes sense. It's kind of more into the farming area, the cattle areas in Canada. The coasts here are NDP, they're more left of center. And you can see that there's kind of a mix of different things going on in this section here. So I thought the next interesting thing to do is be able to click on a riding and see the breakdown across the party votes to see what happened in each riding. For that, I'm going to create another sheet. And for this one, I'm going to put political affiliation name. I'm going to put the votes for that party. I'm going to sort it. And the other thing, and every time I do this, I think it's really cool. It might not be that cool, but I always get kind of a kick out of it, which is when I put political affiliation name on color, Tableau remembered what I set on the other viz. And I don't know why this feature is so cool. Maybe it speaks to just the extra touch that Tableau does to try and keep things consistent. Now I'm going to combine these two things. So I have a dashboard here. I'm going to take my map. I'm going to take the voting. I'm just going to drag it to the bottom here. And so my goal here is when I select a riding, I want the bottom chart to filter on the votes in that riding. So I'm going to hit this little Use as Filter button right here. And now when I click it, it shows the party that won, it showed its votes. But I need to loosen that constraint because I want to show the other parties. There was more than one party that ran in this riding. So I have to go into a little bit more of a complex workflow, but it's not too bad. If I go to the Actions dialog here, this is the filter that was generated when I hit that button in the top right. I'm going to edit it. And this dialog, it's explaining what the filter is doing. The top part here is saying, okay, what is the source sheet? In this case, it's my map. That's the electoral winners. It's going to run the action when I select the writing, so it's done that by default. And then it's saying what target sheets do you want to use. In this case, it's selected both. That's fine in this case. At the end, at the bottom here, it says all fields. So the reason the viz isn't working is it's taking the fednum, the writing number, the ID, and the political affiliation name and trying to apply both to the bottom viz. But I don't want to apply the political affiliation name to the bottom viz. So I'm going to hit select fields. I'll hit the fednum. And now with that constraint loosened, you have the votes across the party. So you can see here, let me reselect that. You can see here the NDP won, not by a lot, but they won that riding, and you can see the breakdown across the other parties. The next thing I was interested in finding out is this area in here. So Canada sort of has a swing state idea. It's because the bulk of the population is in this area. A lot of times this area is what determines the election. So I'm going to use a custom territory so I can see what the voting in this area is versus the rest of Canada. To create the custom territory, I use the rectangular selection tool. I'm going to select a bunch of these ridings. And I've got a little dialog here to create a group. So I'm going to group all these ridings in a field and say use fednum. Let me just go to the sheet where this viz is. When I did that, it created this field here. And this field stores all those districts, both the districts that are in the set and out of the set. And Tableau also put this field on color. So the inset is now blue, and the outset is now gray. And what I want to do here is, I want to be able to select this blue area is a whole unit. Right now, it's just selecting the items individually in it. So I'm going to drop the political affiliation name because I'm not interested in that anymore. And I'm going to drop the fednum. That's the thing that's breaking up all the shapes. So now when I select over, the entire shape is selected. So I'm going to go back to my dashboard. I'm going to select it, but nothing happened. And the reason nothing happened is that step I did before, where I was customizing the filter, is now invalid because I've dropped the fednum. So to reapply it, I'm just going to turn off the filter and turn it back on. Now it's reapplied the filter. And now when I select here, you can see that the Liberals won this area by a good margin, 4.2 to 2.9. But what I thought was really interesting is when I zoom out to see the rest of Canada, when I select the rest of Canada, you can see they're virtually tied, very, very close in the rest of Canada. So this obviously leads to the conclusion that when you're paying money for ads, you're trying to do debates, you're focusing in this lower region, because this is probably, well, at least this is what won you the 2015 election. So my summary is we have a spatial file connector. We support 8 or 9 different types. We're constantly adding new ones. There's a lot out there, but shapefiles are the dominant one. I'd say it's probably 80%, 85% of the spatial files out there are shapefiles. I customized actions, so I could do what I wanted with the viz. And I'm combining vizzes into dashboards. Notice there's much more information that's outside the map, and I can use the chart and the map together to provide more information to your users. And finally, I used custom territories. That was the blue and gray outgroups, so I could analyze the election in a little bit more detail. All right, I got another quiz coming your way, another $5 Starbucks card. This one's a little bit harder, though. That is an abandoned car. I found a 311 data set that was provided by the New Orleans Open Government Portal. And they track 311 calls. And 311 calls are a municipal service where people can call and they can report potholes, broken streetlights, missing stop signs, graffiti, and abandoned cars. So I downloaded this data set and I started to analyze it. So my question to you guys are, in 2017, how many abandoned cars were reported in the city of New Orleans? Okay, it's higher than 1,600? Who said 5,000? Oh, well, I just gave it away, I guess. Yeah, he took advantage. Okay, give it to the gentleman over there. Yeah, it was a little higher than 5,000. It was 5,500 cars reported as abandoned in New Orleans in 2017. And that was an astounding figure to me. So I'm going to take this data and we're going to analyze it a little bit. So here's the data. Let me hit this view data pane, and we'll just have a quick look at the data. So here you can see the case title. You can see the cities in. It's got this issue description that tells you the color and the make of the car. But most importantly, it's got this location field, and this is where my eyes lit up. These are latitude longitudes that we can plot directly in a map. And so I can see the location of these cars. So the latitude and longitude fields are here, and notice it's got that globe on it again. So I'm going to double click each one, and now we're presented with a map. You can see the map isn't quite right. It's zoomed too far out. All that data is just in this little area, and the problem is there's a little blue dot hiding up here. It took me a long time to find this. I thought there was a bug in the code, but it's hiding up there. And if you look at the values are just wrong, right? The values are much smaller than that. So I'm just going to exclude this value. And once I do that, Tableau gives me the view that I want. So this data set is actually from 2012. So I've got all the reports from 2012 just up to a couple of months ago. And down in this lower left here, there's a display that tells you how many marks. So each point is a mark in this data set. So there's 20,000 calls since 2012, another huge number. But the problem here is the dots are all on top of each other. You can't really make any pattern out of it. We have a new feature called density, which is a different mark type. So when I hit density, you can see the concentration of where these cars are being reported. I'm going to change the color, because this blue isn't my favorite color. I really like this red one. And I'm just going to bring down the opacity, just so I can bring sort of the background map up through the heat map colors. The next thing I'm going to do is, I thought it'd be interesting just to see what's happening over time. There's a ticket created date time. I'm going to move that to the pages shelf. And on the right side here, you notice there's a little widget here. And this widget has broken the data up from 2012. And there's a little play button here. And when I hit play, you can see how the problem is actually getting worse over time. Year over year, it's getting more and more dense. Now, in 2018, there was a big drop. Can anyone guess why there was a big drop in 2018? It's not over yet. Yeah, it's not over. It was too easy, so I'm going to get a little bit harder on you. So, oh, sorry, it's right over here.
Thank you.
So I'm just going to filter the 2008 out, so it doesn't, so it's not in the data. So I just dragged the same field to filters. I'm going to go to years and just take out 2018. And now when I play it, you can see that 2018 doesn't come in. So this is great. We can see the concentration in these core areas of New Orleans. The problem with the heat map is it's more of a visual analysis. I don't have numbers here. I don't know how many cars are in these spots. You can see this trend, but I want to get to more of an analytical flow. And for that, I'm going to use another feature. This feature is called Spatial Join, or intersects. I've already joined the data here. But what I did is I took those 311 calls, and I brought in the planning districts. The planning districts is another shapefile. I downloaded it from New Orleans, and they've just broken up the city into these planning districts. And I've used a new operator called intersects. It's a spatial join. And what this operator does is it figures out which point is in which one of these planning districts. So let me plot it, and I'll show you. So here's the data set here. If I just go down to the bottom, here's the planning district shapefile. You can see there's a geometry field here with the blue globe. And here are the planning districts. You notice when I hover over, the entire shape highlights. So I'm going to break this shape up again, just like I did with the Canadian example. And there's another field called object ID. That's a unique identifier. So I'm going to move that onto detail. So now each polygon highlights separately. And then I'm going to take number of records and put it on color. So this is going to tell me how many points are going to fall into each polygon. And I'm just going to change the color here to my personal favorite, which is orange-blue diverging. The great thing about this color palette is the previous color palette I was using in the Canadian example, it's green, it was red-green, and that isn't very effective for people that are colorblind. So you want to stay away from that color palette and use this orange-blue diverging. I'm just going to reverse the colors, so the red is going to tell me the more intense areas. And now it's really easy to see what area is showing the most amount of abandoned cars. And if I hover over, you can see since 2012, almost 6,500 cars in there. This area here, almost just a little over 5,000. And there's some areas that just reported 7. So remember when I was showing you that issue description where it showed the make of the car? I'm going to use that because I'm thinking, maybe I've got an opportunity here. Maybe I have a business opportunity. Maybe I should open a garage. And maybe I should train in understanding how, which cars are available in these areas. So let's see what that breakdown is. I'm going to create another worksheet. I've got the make of car here. I'm going to put it on rows. I'm going to put number of records on columns. So now I've got the count of all these cars that have been found. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a feature I think we released last year called viz in tooltip. So I'm going to embed that viz in a tooltip. So when this tooltip pops up, it's going to show the viz. So I'm going to go to the tooltip. I'm going to get rid of this. Okay, insert sheets, and then the worksheet I want. There's a bunch of text here that's required, so Tableau knows how to reference that sheet. Now when I highlighted it, it's showing me this breakdown. But this isn't quite what I want. First of all, the worksheet's too big. It's giving me that little warning message at the bottom saying it's too big. And I want to sort this. I want to know the most cars. So I'm going to go to cars. I'm going to do a simple sort operation by hitting this button here. And I'm also going to add a filter to just show me the top 5 cars by count. So I'm going to hit top by field, and let's just change this to 5. Now I'm going to go back to the sheet, and there we have it. So we have this breakdown. So there's a new brand called Unknown. I'm not quite sure what that brand is, but I guess I'm going to pick up some books from the library. Obviously, a lot of this is human entered data, so you're going to see problems like this. I could probably filter out Unknown. That would be a very easy operation to do too. But you can kind of see what you're expecting. You see Chevy and Ford as kind of clear winners, I guess. And you see Toyota and Honda because there are probably just so many cars out on the street using that with that brand. So my summary here is density maps can give you that quick visual analysis to spot density trends. Spatial Join is similar, but it can give you more analytical information. I can get counts. And finally, I use viz in tooltips just to show more data. Again, it's not just all about the map. I'm trying to combine different things so I can see patterns.
Do you know what version that viz in tooltips is available?
I'd have to look it up. It came out a while ago. I want to say at least a year, but don't quote me on that. I might get in trouble. So before I go to the next demo, the zoo demo, I wanted to talk a little bit about what maps, some fundamental principles of maps in Tableau. Maps in Tableau comprise of 2 basic things. You've got your data that you're bringing in, like that 311 data, and you've got a background. So here I have a viz where I've brought in that 311 data, but I don't have the background map. So you can imagine if you didn't know this is New Orleans data, you would have no idea where this data is. That background map provides that context. Background maps, there's no user interaction. You can't click on anything on the background map and filter it. All the interaction is based on the mark or the data. We have a couple ways of changing the background map to provide more context to your users. I'm going to hit map here, map layers. And you see here, I've just washed out the entire map so I can show you what the data looked like without a map. But I can take that washout out. Now you can see it's New Orleans. There's a bunch of map layers here. I can put place names so you can get more context to what that data is. We have a bunch of different layers here. You can add zip code data just to provide that more context that your users might need based on your data. We also have demographic layers built right into Tableau. I can hit per capita income, and I'm going to show it by zip code. And I'm just going to use a different color palette. So you have all these different ways to provide more context. Your data might need this context to help explain what your data is saying. So there are these options for you to be able to use. We also have a couple extensibility points. If I go to Map, Background Maps, Map Services, we have two extensibility points. There's a WMS server extensibility point, and it's, WMS stands for Web Map Services, and Web Map Server? Services? Server. It's one of the two. And this is a server that your organization might set up for you to provide custom background maps. There's a lot out there on the internet. The US government has quite a few. The one problem with them, the one problem that you can have with them is they're just these random servers on the internet. They can go down at any time. So you have to be a little bit careful using them. I've preloaded one. This is a national map. This is provided by USGS. And I've also created another map from Mapbox. They have a booth here in the Data Village. And they have a product that lets you completely customize your map. It's free to sign up for. You can add or remove whatever data. You can add lots of layers. You can remove layers. It's really up to you what you'd want to do with it. And it's really easy to get it into Tableau. Their site provides a URL, and you take that URL and you just plug it into Tableau.
If you don't access it via the internet, what is the default view that Tableau is? Because I know you put these two in.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have any of that, what is?
Yeah, so what I've been showing here is just the default. Yeah, so you get all this stuff by default with whatever, yeah. You don't have to do anything special to get our Tableau maps. These are just different options if you find that our maps aren't good enough or you need more data. So let me show you the different maps here. I've got them plugged in right here. Here's the Tableau map. I'll go to the national map. And as it's coming in, it's actually pretty fast given I'm connecting a conference here. This is provided by USGS. This might provide you more context, or you might like this kind of map more. Let me show you a map from Mapbox, and this map is really cool. It's a satellite map. So this map is probably the context I want, right? I can see the neighborhoods, I can see the streets, I can see this fine detail. The zoo. So this was constructed for my daughter, but it's also going to illustrate another functionality in Tableau. But before I start that, I got one last Starbucks card on the line. This is going to be an easy one. We'll see what happens. What zoo is this tiger in? Nope.
San Diego.
Okay, I heard San Diego, but you're just so close to me. Who else said San Diego? How many cards do we have left, Jim? All right, just give it to this gentleman and give it to two other people. Oh, sorry, over here. How about one for each section? If you're mad about not getting a Starbucks card, just grab me and I'll take you for a Starbucks coffee after the meeting. So I showed this first half of the deck to my daughter, right? Lots of eye rolls and stuff, right? And so I went back to the office and I was telling a colleague about what her reactions were. And he had this great data set about a zoo. Let me show you this data set. So I'm just going to switch over to it. This data set here has the animal, its birth date, its name, its sex. It's got a webcam, which is going to be pretty cool. But most importantly, it has this XY. This XY corresponds to a specific image. And that image is an image of a map of San Diego. So I'm going to put this two together to create another way of building a custom map. So I'm going to take this X and I'm going to take this Y. And let's make those circles a little bigger. Let's make them a lot bigger. And I'm just going to make them black. So I've got the data plotted. Now I need to get that background in. So I'm going to go up to Map. I'm going to hit Background Images. I'm going to select the data set I'm using. I'm going to add an image. And I'm going to browse to the map of the San Diego Zoo. There's the map. And I just need to do a little bit of customization here. I need to tell Tableau what the dimensions of the picture is in pixels. So now we've got a map, but it's a little wrong. There's two things going on here. First, what Tableau is trying to do is it's trying to just use the minimum covering for those points in order to not distract you. But in this case, it's exactly what I don't want. So I'm going to modify that. I'm going to hit the x-axis. I'm going to tell Tableau use fixed, and I'm going to type in those same numbers. You can see Tableau is adjusting it as I type it. I'm going to do the y-axis as well. And you notice one other thing, that the picture's flipped, right? And the reason it's flipped is for an image, the pixel coordinates start in the top left, 0, 0 is top left, and it kind of flows down from there. For charts, it's the bottom left, and it flows up, so it flips the picture around. So luckily, we made a very easy way to get it back the way you want. You can just reverse it, and now everything works. And let me just remove these headers. So now we have it plotted. I'm going to add animal onto detail. So now we can see what the mark is. One best practice is to fix your tooltips. The XY information here doesn't provide any value. So I'm going to just go to the XY, or sorry, go to the tooltip, remove XY. And it just shows the polar bear, the panda, the orangutan. So my last step is I'm going to use that webcam. First, I'm going to draw the webcam onto the viz. So this ensures that Tableau has the data ready in the viz. Then I'll go up to the worksheet. I'll go to actions. I'll add an action, and there's a URL action here. So this is the source sheet in Tableau. I'm going to run the action on a select. I'm going to run the webcam link. So this is where we're at. So with bated breath, I went home, and I clicked on the panda. Please be there. Oh, there it is. So I showed her that, and I got the coveted 2 thumbs up. Just to recap, yep.
Back to that Zoom thing, is there any way to watermark, like in Excel or the PowerPoint, if you will, if you want, because colors are so bright, it's difficult to see the black spots?
Great question. Yeah, you can wash out the picture. So if I go back here, let me find that picture. You can wash it out a bit. Yeah, this picture is so saturated, it's hard to get those things to pop. And you'll notice with our Tableau maps, they're very understated because it's about the marks. You want the marks to pop. So our maps are kind of optimized for that as well. So the recap, use the Superstore set. It's a really easy way for you guys to get going and create a map. It's just a few short clicks, and you can really experiment. I use colors and size and dual axis to just put more information onto the map. I used the Canadian elections set to show you how to bring in spatial files. This type of spatial file was a shape file. I linked those vizzes together and created a dashboard, and it just provides more information, more context for your users. I then took the 3-in-1 data set that had those latitude and longitudes and plotted them directly. And I used density map and spatial join just to see what the trends are like and to do some analysis. And finally, I talked a little bit about backgrounds, and I used that zoo example. So ultimately, you can create a map out of anything, just a picture. You'd have to do the manual work to find those XY locations, but ultimately, you can create a map out of anything you want. Here's some related sessions. My colleague Jim here is doing a session on Bayou Tapestry. This is a really cool session. He uses a lot of techniques I've shown today to show what's happening on the Louisiana coast. So I really recommend that one. You'll have a great time with it. And I picked oh, this is wrong slide. This lost no longer, excuse me. This is a hands-on lab to walk you through creating maps. Now, I think they're on a wait list. So if you're interested in doing it, sign up for it right now. No guarantees you'll get in, but you'll have a laptop and you'll be able to do it directly. Please fill out the survey. I got some bad news for you guys. It's going to be really hard to choose what number to use my session. They're really complicated. So just pick 5s. It's all the way down the right. Hit submit, and you're good to go. No, but seriously, please give me your feedback. I do read it every night. I have made adjustments on this stuff, so I really appreciate the feedback. And again, thank you. Thank you for coming to my session.